Okay, so hello. Today I'm joined by the lovely Bee McPherson, and Bee is an associate professor of clinical education at Leeds Medical School and also an associate of Thrive Leadership. So, hi Bee, it's really nice to see you.
Good morning, Mel. Nice to see you again.
Well, I'm glad we've caught up because obviously this week we've got International Menopause Awareness Day. I know for us at Thrive it's every day, but I wanted to talk to you a bit about HRT.
Mm.
And in our training, we touch upon it lightly, but I wanted to sort of unpack it a little bit for people today so that we can understand when we talk about hormone therapy, which is how it's been labelled for International Menopause Day, what are we talking about? What do we mean?
Yeah, that's a really good place to start, Mel. So, hormone replacement therapy, when we go through perimenopause and menopause, there's a reduction in essential hormones that we have throughout our lives up until that point. So, estrogen, progesterone, and less talked about, but more so recently, testosterone.
Yeah.
So, hormone replacement therapy is essentially the replacement of estrogen and progesterone. Progesterone's needed if you still have a uterus to protect the endometrium. If you don't have a uterus, you don't necessarily need to take progesterone. And it
Yeah.
comes in different forms, Mel. So the estrogen can come in the form of a patch, it come in the form of a tablet, or it can come in the form of transdermal gel. So you rub the gel into the skin on your body.
Yeah, yeah.
Progesterone you need if you've still got a uterus, and that can either come as a tablet, it can come as a patch. So if you have a patch, you might have an estrogen only patch for part of the month and a
Hmm.
patch with estrogen and progesterone for part of the month.
Yeah.
It also comes in the Marina coil. As well. So that is another way where you can get progesterone and it protects the uterus.
Hmm.
So estrogen and progesterone and more so, excuse me, more so recently, we talk about testosterone as well. That wouldn't be seen traditionally as part of the HRT, but more people are getting prescribed testosterone because we know that's an important hormone for women, not just men. It's important for our, cognition, our motivation, and our sex drive as well.
And how common is it that you'd get testosterone through your local GP, for example?
Yeah. I think that's a bit of a postcode lottery, and I think it's something that's improved over recent years. But I
Hmm.
do think it does depend where you live. But it is more easy for GPs to prescribe that now, certainly in some areas than it was previously.
Yeah. And I think it's off license. It's not actually licensed in the UK
Mm.
for women, whereas I think in Australia and places you can get
Mm.
testosterone.
Yeah,
People are getting it privately. We probably need to do another catch up around the privatization of menopause, right?
yeah,
Because there's a lot of people getting treatment privately rather than for our
yeah.
general practitioners.
And I think some of the people who go privately feel that they've had no option, that that
Yeah.
that they have to go privately.
Uh-huh.
But I suppose for me that excludes a lot of the population.
Yeah,
Because
absolutely.
many people can't afford that. I do know the testosterone that you can get prescribed privately is designed for women. If you're getting
Right.
it from your GP, it's the testosterone that is prescribed or made for men. Sorry, not prescribed, made for men.
Yeah.
But the doses are very
Very
minimal,
small.
and
Yeah.
there's no empirical evidence of anybody having a woman having an issue from having that very small dose of testosterone.
I guess as well, though, we're building a data bank around that, aren't we? So
Yeah,
it's a bit of a watch and see.
yeah,
So
yeah. It
going
takes
back
time.
to if we look at like estrogen and progesterone, which are the two key components in the UK that when we're talking about
Mhm.
HRT, that's what we're talking about. How do you know what's right for you in terms of that combination of different types of products?
Yeah. Yeah, that I think that can be quite complex for people because we know menopausal symptoms are really varied in
Mm,
the length the symptoms might last, the severity of the symptoms, and the range of symptoms that people experience is
yeah.
so different.
Hmm.
And what I would say, I would say to anybody, it's like any health issue. You need to find out as much as you can about it, because if you understand what's out there, it enables us to make the choice that's right for us. And what you
Yeah.
choose might be different to what I choose, Mel. And that's not right or wrong. It's just we need to be armed with information so we can make good choices. So it's about people having access to good information, because there's a lot of information out there now. Since I started doing this work, and nobody seemed to be talking about it, to it being much more mainstream. So it's about making sure you get the right information. And I would say it's a bit of a suck it and see. So you might try patches, but it might be you find you don't really get on with the patches. And that doesn't mean that you can't get on with HRT if that's what you choose to take, but
Yeah.
it might be you try a different form of HRT. So if the
Mhm.
patches don't work, maybe it's the gel and a coil, because if you're having really unmanageable periods and you still need to sort contraception, a coil might be a good option for somebody.
Yeah, but there could be an element of experimentation
Mm.
whilst you get
Yeah.
it right.
I think so. And also be aware that your needs might change over time
Yeah.
as the hormones continue to deplete. Your needs might change.
Yeah, and I've heard that quite a lot about people
Mm.
going back to their GP and saying this was working, now not working quite so well. So it may be an indication of having to adjust the dose or even the mechanism for getting
Yeah.
the HRT right. Okay, so what about those folks who can't take HRT, right? There are certain groups of people, and I don't know if you'd explain that to us, who really can't. It would be dangerous for them to take it. So what
Yeah.
what can they do?
So there's considerations for people who've had some forms of cancer. But what I would say again to anybody, not just people perhaps who've had cancer previously, is make sure you're accessing the right information from a specialist to make sure you do fall into that category.
Yes, yeah.
And again, it's the same for all of us. Where should we all start is
Mm,
with our well-being. So are we thinking about our diet? Are we thinking about exercise? Are we thinking about our sleep? Because we know, Mel,
mm,
that perimenopause really affects our weight, it affects our sleep, it affects our brain function, as well as many other the symptoms as well. So I think we all need to start to think about, how are we looking after ourselves? It is a good place to start. And there might be alternative therapies. Lots of people choose alternative therapies. So things like phytoestrogens, so plant estrogens, things like Kava Kava or black cohosh, things like St. John's wort. But again, it's do your research, because you shouldn't take St. John's wort if you're on antidepressants.
mm,
Black cohosh, Kava Kava can affect your liver function, for example. So
mhm.
again, it's about doing the research. And I would say make sure you speak to a specialist to make sure that if you think you might like to try HRT, that you actually really can't.
Yeah, yeah. And I think it's usually an estrogen receptive cancer, right, that you would generally
Yeah,
avoid
yeah,
HRT because it could
yeah,
recur the
yeah.
cancer. So,
But I do believe also
mm,
that those types of cancers fall into category of people who are just more likely to get a reoccurrence of cancer.
right, okay. Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does make
Yeah,
sense.
yeah,
I guess as well, as a woman in the window of menopause and going through it, I think sometimes we have to tune into our bodies, don't we? And say, what is it my body doesn't like that I used to do 10 years ago? And we're not always great at listening to those signals, whether that be reducing alcohol. A lot of women I know can't drink a lot of alcohol because it brings on hot sweats, or it can impact their insomnia, or drinking too much caffeine, or adjusting the amount of time when you drink caffeine. So it's about what small lifestyle changes can you
yeah,
implement that isn't too onerous,
yeah.
but will actually give you a significant result, right? Actually, I feel a bit better because I don't drink wine anymore, or I might only drink one glass of wine as opposed to half a bottle or a
Mm,
bottle,
mm,
because actually that made me feel really bad. So
yeah,
some of it's basic lifestyle
yeah.
tips, isn't it?
I would agree with that. I stopped having hot drinks at work because a hot drink would make me flush, and then being at work, you know, made it worse. So I just stopped having hot drinks at work, and I don't miss it now. I don't drink anyway. And that wasn't because of perimenopause.
Mm,
That was just a personal choice. I've tried to up the protein in my diet, so I try and have
yeah,
protein every meal. So
great
I
point.
think there can be some small steps that people can take, but I think let's be kind to ourselves, Mel. We've
Yeah,
grown into women's bodies,
yeah,
and it's just an no, we're not going to look like we did when we were 21. because we've lived a life. Our bodies have carried us for a lifetime since then. So I
Mm.
think, yeah, we need to safeguard our future health in the best way that we can. But actually, let's be a bit kind to ourselves because our body's actually protecting itself. You know, if you've got a bit of extra padding around your middle, you're not going to fracture your hips now, hopefully, when you,
Let's hope
I
not.
would say.
So, I guess as well, I love the protein thing because you know me, I love lifting weights,
You
and I
do.
think strength training is another massive
Yeah.
thing. Incorporating some strength training into our weekly workout, even if it's a
Yeah.
little bit of kettlebells or, but actually, um, that will help us stay strong in old age. And a lot of what we're talking about with HRT is how we're safeguarding our future health, isn't it? Not just how we navigate the symptoms. So, what about some of those long-term benefits of HRT, B? What do you think the main things, the
Yeah.
benefits are long-term?
So we know that estrogen is really important for cholesterol regulation, for strength, for flexibility. It's important for your bone health. It
Yeah,
nourishes the tissues. You know, it lubricates the vagina. Oh, can we have a quick moment about vaginal estrogen as well? Mel, would
please
that be
do go
okay?
for it.
Libido, cognition, memory, all of those things. So, yeah, it's good for short-term relief of symptoms, but actually thinking about future health as well.
Yeah,
Really,
yeah.
really important.
So let's pick up on vaginal estrogen then. What is that and what does it
Yeah.
do?
So, I've been humbled to speak to many, many women over the last probably 7 or 8 years that have been doing this. And what we do know also from research is that about 7 out of 10 women will have genitourinary symptoms associated with perimenopause, and still, some of them aren't thought of as perimenopausal issues. So, recurrent UTI still not often thought of as a
Mhm.
hormonal issue.
Yeah,
Um, Painful sex, vaginal dryness, dry itchy vulva. Um, you
yeah.
know, so the lack of estrogen in the tissues, it can make the whole vulval area dry and itchy. For some people, it can just be sore all the time. For
Mm.
other people, it can be vaginal dryness and soreness. For example, when the tissues, the vaginal tissues are stretched, the lining between the vagina and the urethra is thin anyway, and it
Yeah.
gets thinner during perimenopause because it doesn't have that estrogen to make them, juicy, if you like, nourished and juicy. And the
TMI.
vagina, the vagina,
Yeah,
the vagina is a muscle, and that can gets a bit shorter as well.
yeah,
So if the vagina is stretched, for example, using a tampon, or if you're having sex, it can make it uncomfortable, downright painful for
yeah,
some
yeah.
people, and also cause postcoital bleeding. But there is the good news is there is effective treatments. And again, I'm not saying this is a panacea and it's right for everybody, but vaginal estrogen is a really good solution for lots of people. So you can get it on prescription from a GP.
Hmm.
And initially, it would be a maintenance dose every day for a couple of weeks, and then a once or twice dose. There's a newer product called an estring that sits up inside the vagina, sits there for 90 days and releases the estrogen. And for lots of people, that will really help with the recurrent UTIs, the
Hmm.
lubrication, the soreness, the postcoital bleeding. And alongside that, I would encourage people to use lubricant every time they have sex, whether they need it or not, because vaginal dryness isn't necessarily associated with UTIs. You can have one or the other, not necessarily both together.
Yeah,
So there's lots of products out there now. I've noticed, Mel, lots of products claiming to sort all of these issues. I don't know whether they do or they don't. Again, it's about get the right information. Arm yourself with as much information as you can, but replacing estrogen directly into the vagina is safe to use alongside HRT and doesn't have any risks that might be associated with HRT,
yeah.
and using lubricant. And the cheap and works really well solution for that is coconut oil.
Yeah, I was going to say that because there's a lot of people charging a lot of money for vaginal moisturizers and lubricants, and actually natural is probably best,
Yeah,
so like something like a coconut oil, extremely cheap, where you can be paying £25 plus for a certain oil. And again, we're not here to comment on whether those products are valid or useful. They may be very useful for people, but do you need to spend all that money? So it's important again to do your research, isn't it?
yeah.
And what's
Absolutely.
helpful. I guess
Knowledge is power.
knowledge is power, absolutely, and it is empowerment, and that's, I know we're both on the same page with that. If people can be well educated around this, they can make the right choices.
Mm.
I guess my final question to you, B, and we are happy to do a follow-up on this, aren't we? People got any specific questions, but my final question today is if you are thinking about exploring HRT, have you got any tips beyond what we've talked about already, or any sort of, I guess, summary points you want to make?
So my summary points is, I think, for people to understand that perimenopause is a constellation of symptoms. There's lots of them, and it can be difficult to know if that's what it is.
Hmm.
Um, I would encourage any health professionals out there listening to say, just really listen to what the person in front of you is telling you. Please don't dismiss them because you think they're too young or it can't possibly be that, because we know perimenopause can happen at any age. It's not just a woman at 51, for example. That we should all be able to have a conversation in an appropriate way without embarrassment, because this is affecting over half the population. And yes,
Absolutely.
it's on a spectrum, but I would say it's really unusual for somebody's periods to stop without them having any symptoms at
Yeah.
all.
Yeah.
So understand what's happening to your body and arm yourself with information. Keep
Mm.
a diary, write everything down, and go and speak to your GP. Yeah, and if you don't, if you're not satisfied, ask to speak to somebody else. But like we said, knowledge is power, and we have to, it's our health, it's our immediate health, but it's
Yeah.
our future health as well. So how can we live well into older age?
That's great, B. I know we could carry on talking about how we empower ourselves. Maybe we pick up again on a
Yeah.
future chat about that. But thanks for your time today. I really appreciate it. It's been lovely to see you
And
again, and I'll speak to you very soon.
yeah, thanks, Mel.
Thanks. Bye.